Welcome to Inside the Introvert. This podcast will have an introduction, an Inside the Introvert section, an Introvert Dear section, and some jokes and quotes. Let me take a picture real quick. All the times are listed down below, so feel free to jump around and listen to whatever you want. I'm recording this episode and the previous episode back to back, so there's not going to be any introduction for this episode besides that. So we're going to jump into my introverted stories. So we've got a big off-site party coming up at work. It used to be an end-of-year party, and they still kind of say it's an end-of-year party, but of course now it's at the beginning of the year because our end of year is so busy and hectic, and we're trying to spend every bit of time we have focused. So they moved it to the first of the year. And it'll actually be, I don't know when this podcast posts exactly, but from the day I'm recording this, it'll be in 2 days. So I'm actually kind of nervous. My girlfriend's coming with me, so that'll be awesome. It'll make it much, much better. But the most nervous thing that bothers me is finding a place to sit. The very first party like this that I ever went to, I didn't know anybody because I was brand new to the company. And I walked around trying to find a place to sit, and everyone kept saying, those are taken, those are taken. And one of the few people I did know was very high up. So I asked him, I was like, is there like assigned seating, or where do I sit? And I had planned on, being the company photographer, trying to sit close to the stage area so I could take pictures. And he's like, no, there's no assigned seating. So I ended up sitting way in the back just so I could be sure that no one had reserved those. And I couldn't hear what was going on. I couldn't see what was going on. Couldn't stand up. I may have already told the story before, but either way, it was terrible. And the previous ones have been all right. Since I know so many people, it's much easier for me to find someone to sit with, but it's still kind of a hassle. I don't want to. I'm nervous about trying to find a stupid place to sit. But once I get there and find a place to sit, I'll be perfectly fine. Although I may not get up very much. I'm interested to see how it goes with her, because usually I just kind of sit there and play on my phone or something stupid like that, because I'm not like social, so I don't get up and talk to people. I might get up and take some pictures, but that's about it. So it'll be an interesting experience, and it'll be here before I know it. The second story, some lady asked me at work, I'm sorry, I was going with the wrong story. I was going to lunch, and some lady stopped me, and she's like, oh, I haven't seen you forever. And she asked how a friend of mine that used to work there was doing, and I told her she's doing all right and everything. And I was pretty sure I had never seen this person before, but I've discussed previously that happens all the time, and people will stop me, and I'm like, they talk to me, and they know my name and everything, and I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen this person. But she's like, I don't think I've seen you in over a year. And she's like, I was just thinking about you, and all of a sudden we ran into each other. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I'm pretty sure she's probably seen me around and just not thought about me. So that's why. Because it's kind of how that happens. Like, it's like, oh, I was just thinking about this person, and then they called me. It's like, well, they probably call you quite a bit. It just happened that, like, and all of the times that you were thinking about that person that didn't call you, like, But anyways, I was just kind of luckily it was because we were in the lunchroom. It was a very short conversation. Like, I was going to heat up my food, so she's like, okay, well, take care. Got to go along my way. The last one happened recently. A lady at Dollar General, like, I was in line at Dollar General, and one of the other registers opened up, and there's probably like 4 people ahead of me. We were not moving very quickly. And she said, I can only take cards, I don't have any cash. She's like, I'm going home soon, and I don't feel like getting the register. And so the lady behind me had an EBT card. And I turned around, and I said, go ahead. So she walked up there, and Of course, we hadn't moved at all, and I was standing right beside where that register was, so I could hear everything. And I guess she had withdrawn some money and forgotten about that, so she only had like $1 something, and her total was $3 something. And so she ended up having to void the whole transaction, which for me, I was like, I know exactly what that cashier feels like, because I worked retail for so long. It's like I'm trying to help some people out real quick, and of course it just happens to go wrong. But it was funny because the lady, after she got it voided, she was like, do you remember where you were in line? And she was like, I think I was behind him, and pointed to me. So I turned around, I was going to pay with a credit card. So I said, how about we change places? Because there was already 3 people behind me that had walked up after all that happened. And she's like, yeah, sure. So I got to go up there, only had my 2 items, quickly scanned it, swiped my card, and I was out of there. And she got her place back in line, and I got it out before everyone else in that line. So it worked out perfectly. I got to be nice to somebody and let her go in front of me, and then when it didn't work out, I got to get out of there quickly. Take a picture of this. It's kind of neat. It's a walking trail where they labeled all the trees, so you can see all the different types of trees and bring kids, and it's a very short trail, but it's graveled. But that's going to be it for the Inside the Introvert stories. We're going to go on to the newsletter stories, which some of these I have to kind of read back over because I have no clue where it's going. So you can't stop being an introvert to become an extrovert, and why would you want to? I mean, they've kind of shown, like, a lot of people, our society in general, I guess, is more extroverted themed, and that's kind of one of the running things, that they try to get kids to come out of their shell and be more extroverted instead of just accepting that they're an introvert. And it's actually linked to dopamine sensitivity. Introverts are usually highly sensitive to dopamine, so we don't need nearly as much of a hit, and we don't need nearly as much like social interaction and stuff, whereas extroverts need a lot more of it. So our brain chemistry is literally different between an introvert and extrovert. And of course there's a range, so some of them are very similar, but either way, you're born with it, and it's not something that's bad by any means. I very much enjoy being an introvert, and it took me a long time to really figure it all out, but it is awesome, and I love being an introvert now, and if you are an introvert, you should love it too. So it's brought up that it's not rude to care for yourself and your needs. It's perfectly fine to decline a social event, to not answer a phone call because you don't want to talk to somebody, things like that. That's all right. I mean, that's part of being an introvert. It's not something that's rude. I think there's plenty of ways to be rude, but a lot of it is extroverts and like the extroverted, more society type things. But that's fine. If you're not feeling like it, if you're out of energy, just don't do it. I mean, that's how I am, and I don't really care if people think I'm rude for it, and that's how you have to be accepted as an introvert. You'll be mistakenly called rude sometimes, and that's fine. Just explain to them, or not care. But it's better to do that than to reach the point of exhaustion that I discussed in the last podcast, the introverted hangover, where you're very easy to get angry and easily agitated, and then you'll say stuff that you might regret. So it's fine to be rude instead of being angry later. And the last Introvert Dear story, this is something I never really thought up, but I used to say that I was antisocial, and that's actually very different than being introverted. Being introverted doesn't mean that you're shy. Introverts may not be as good at social interactions just simply because we have less experience with them, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're antisocial. It doesn't mean that we hate people and that we hate social interactions. or that we don't know the laws and customs of society and of social interactions. It just means that we don't experience them nearly as much, and we may not enjoy them as much, and we have to have limited exposure to them, which is all perfectly fine. So I no longer say that I'm antisocial. Now I just say I have to have limited social experience or exposure, and people need to know that when I'm starting to reach my tipping point that I need to leave. This is kind of weird. It looks like a Pokeball. I may have to take a picture of my phone to send to my Pokemon. Okay, so I don't know if switching to my camera stopped the recording or if my mom calling stopped the recording, but either way, it did stop. So we're going to get back on track. I was at the jokes and quotes. Waking up in the morning is a real eye-opening experience. Right. If at first you don't succeed, then skydiving is not for you. Perfect. Actually, I've had enough daylight to record all this. That's nice. It's all overcast, and tomorrow's going to be all cold and rainy. So, thought it might be getting dark too early. Ask the right questions, and you'll discover how truly fascinating people are. This one's definitely hard for introverts because we don't like asking questions and socializing, but it is neat that pretty much everyone has very fascinating stories and has very unique backgrounds, and they've experienced so many different things. And if you're able to get on a level where you can talk to them, it always surprises me how many things people have experienced. And I get out there and experience tons of things, but even like different states people have lived in. Like, I've always lived in the same state my entire life, and that seems to be very rare with all the people I talk to. I'm gonna take a picture of a giant spider web that's a kid's plaything, not like an actual spider web. The other quote: a person who loves life will never run out of fun things to do. And this one's definitely very true. I've always said that, now I may have said this as a quote, being bored is just being lazy. Like, if you love life and you've got hobbies and things like that, there's no time to be bored. I literally am never bored. I've got so much stuff to do. I constantly have too much stuff to do, and I can't complete it all. But that's nice because it keeps me busy, and it is just impossible for me to be bored. And I feel like people that do sit around and like, I'm so bored, that's just a lack of effort of finding something fun to do. There's so much that you can experience. It doesn't matter about money. I don't have hardly any money, and I'm able to experience tons of fun things. I mean, it's not costing me anything right now to walk around and record this and just walk around in nature. And if that's not your thing, there's lots of things out there. So just try to find what makes you happy, and then if you can't find it, keep looking, because it's out there. That's going to be it for this podcast. There's an introduction video out there, so you can watch that or listen to that, and it will tell you more about this podcast. All my videos / MP3 are on YouTube, like all the older ones, and I also post on SoundCloud, and I've got an Instagram and Twitter, so you can contact me on any of those. And take care of yourself, because you're not alone out there. Hey, I want to throw this in real quick. Listen to these frogs. They heard me. Hopefully that was loud enough where you could hear. I was trying to get a little bit closer.